shit knock and roll.
And we're back. Kill the Cat Radio, KTCR. I'm Matthew Diabate. Because with Kill the Cat, curiosity, satisfaction brought it back. And we are glad you are back. Season 1, Episode 4. You know, it's a lot of fun to have your own podcast. It means you can do whatever you want. It means you can share what's most important to you with people who might like it too. And this week, we're featuring one of my favorite writers of all time, Mr. Lawrence Durrell. He started off like most writers in obscurity. He was born in Jalandhar, India in 1912, and after his father died of a brain hemorrhage, his family moved back to England when he was a teenager. He never really fit in after growing up in such a different kind of place like India. He darkly called the stodgy way of life in the British Isles as the English death. After meeting his wife and publishing his first book at the tender age of 23, he then escaped to the island of Corfu in the Greek islands. That's when he really dug in and began his literary life. Have you never heard of Lawrence Durrell? Don't worry, you're not the only one out there. But it is a damn shame. Anyone who knows me knows how much I love this writer. And my favorite novel of all of his is Justine, his most popular novel, and the first of what would be eventually called the Alexandria Quartet. They say never lend out a book you ever want back, and that's probably why every 3 months I keep finding myself having to repurchase the book again. I keep giving it away to too many people. Now, what exactly makes Lawrence Durrell so special to me? I think it's his style. He's got this poetic stream of lurid phrasing, half poetry, half literature, and this is most present in Justine. Here, close your eyes and take a listen to how he opens up the novel. The sea is high again today, with a thrilling flush of wind. In the midst of winter, you can feel the inventions of spring. A sky of hot nude pearl until midday, crickets in sheltered places, and now the wind unpacking the Great Plains, ransacking the Great Plains. I have escaped to this island with a few books and the child, Melissa's child. I do not know why I use the word escape. The villagers say jokingly that only a sick man would choose such a remote place to rebuild. Well, then, I have come here to heal myself, if you like to put it that way. At night, when the wind roars and the child sleeps quietly in its wooden cot by the echoing chimney piece, I light a lamp and limp about, thinking of my friends, of Justine and Nassim, of Melissa and Balthazar. I return link by link along the iron chains of memory to the city which we inhabited so briefly together, the city which used us as its flora, precipitated in us conflicts which was hers and which we mistook for our own. Oh, beloved Alexandria, I have had to come so far away from it in order to understand it all. Living on this bare promontory, snatched every night from darkness by Arcturus, far from the lime-laden dust of those summer afternoons, I see at last that none of us properly is to be judged for what happened in the past. It is the city which should be judged, though we, its children, must pay the price. Now, as the story unfolds, each character we meet, they are described with such talismanic power. It's as if they aren't actual characters at all, but some elemental force of energy. He continues. Capitally, what is this city of ours? What is resumed in the word of Alexandria? In a flash, my mind's eye shows me 1,000 dust-tormented streets. Flies and beggars own it now today, and those who enjoy an intermediate existence between either. 5 races, 5 languages, a dozen creeds, 5 fleets turning through their greasy reflections behind the harbor bar. But there are more than 5 sexes, and only demonic Greek seems to be distinguished amongst them. The sexual provender which lies to hand is staggering in its variety and profusion. You would never mistake it for a happy place. The symbolic lovers of the free Hellenic world are replaced here by something different, something subtly androgynous, inverted upon itself. The Orient cannot rejoice in the sweet anarchy of the body, for it has outstripped the body. I remember Nassim saying, I think he was quoting, that Alexandria was the great winepress of love. Those who emerged from it were the sick men, the solitaries, the prophets, and I mean all who have been deeply wounded in their sex. I first discovered Justine by accident in a used bookstore in Brooklyn. I did my famous strange book test. Say what you will, but we all have a way of testing out books we've never read before. Mine is very specific. I flip to a random place in the book and read 2 sentences. Not a paragraph, not a page, just 2 sentences. That's all I need to know. And with something like Justine, only 2 sentences in, I was hooked. Notes for landscape tones. Long sequences of tempera. Light filtered through the essence of lemons. An air full of brick dust. Sweet-smelling brick dust. And the odor of hot pavement slaked with water. Light damp clouds, earthbound, yet seldom bringing rain. Upon this squirt, dust red, dust green, chalk mauve, and watered crimson lake. In summer, the sea damp lightly varnished the air. Everything lay under a coat of gum. And in the autumn, the dry, palpitant air, harsh with static electricity, inflaming the body through its light clothing, the flesh coming alive, trying the bars of its prison. A drunken whore walks in the dark street at night, shedding snatches of songs like petals. Was it in this that Anthony heard the heart-numbing strains of the great music which persuaded him to surrender forever to the city he loved? The sulking bodies of the young begin to hunt for a fellow nakedness, and in those little cafes where Balthazar went so often with the old poet of the city, the boys stir uneasily at their backgammon under the petrol lamps, disturbed by this dry desert wind, so unromantic, so unconfiding. Stir and turn to watch every stranger. They struggle for breath, and in every summer kiss, they can detect the taste of quicklime. I had come here in order to rebuild the city in my brain. Melancholy provinces which the old man saw as full of the black ruins of his own life. Clang of the trams shuddering in their metal veins as they pierced the iodine-colored Midan of Mazarita. Gold, phosphorus, magnesium paper. Here we so often met. There was a little colored stall in summer with slices of watermelon and the vivid water ices she liked to eat. She would come a few minutes late, of course, fresh perhaps from some assignation in a darkened room, from which I avert my mind, but so fresh, so young, the open petal of the mouth that fell upon mine like an unslaked summer. The man she had left might still be going over and over the memory of her. She might be as if still dusted by the pollen of his kisses. It mattered so little somehow, feeling the lithe weight of the creature as she leaned on one's arm, smiling with selfless candor of those who had given over with secrets. It was good to stand there, awkward and a little shy, breathing quickly because we knew what we wanted of each other. The messages passing beyond conscience, directly through the flesh lips, eyes, water ices, the colored stall, to stand lightly there, drinking in the deep camphor-scented afternoon, a part of the city. And what a city it is. He calls it Alexandria, but unlike its real-world counterpart, Durrell's Alexandria is complete fabrication, rebuilt with textures of the unconscious, as if the city is more of a dream city, sometimes nightmarish, inhabited by these 4 characters that cross into each other's lives like electric wires: Melissa, Justine, Balthazar, Nassim. It is a love story, sort of, but I'm not going to give anything away. I will admit something funny, though. This is the last book I took on a date. I don't mean I took the book with me on a date. I mean I took the book out for a date. It was just me and the book and a pen so I could underline each amazing passage I found. And that's how much I love this book. Some say Justine is a sexual novel. I think the sentence structures sort of inherently have that kind of cadence. A poetic vulnerability, movement, a movement like bodies naked together on a bed. Now he finally introduces us to Justine. He writes, "At the time when I met Justine, I was almost a happy man. A door had suddenly opened upon an intimacy with Melissa, intimacy not the less marvelous for being unexpected and totally undeserved. Like all egotists, I cannot bear to live alone, and truly the last year of bachelorhood had sickened me. My domestic inadequacy, my hopelessness over clothes and food and money had all reduced me to despair. I had sickened too of the cockroach-haunted rooms where I then lived. Melissa had penetrated my shabby defenses, not by any of the qualities one might enumerate in a lover, charm, exceptional beauty, intelligence. No, but by the force of what I could only call her charity, in the Greek sense of the word. I used to see her, I remember, pale, rather on the slender side, dressed in a shabby sealskin coat, leading her small dog about the winter streets. Her blue-veined, fistic hands, etc. Her eyebrows artificially pointed upward to enhance those fine, dauntlessly candid eyes. I saw her daily for many months on end, but her sullen, aniline beauty awoke no response in me. Day after day I passed her, on my way to the Café Al-Akatar, where Balthazar waited for me in his black hat to give me instruction. I did not dream that I shall ever become her lover. I knew that she had once been a model at the Atelier, an unenviable job, and was now a dancer. More, that she was the mistress of an elderly furrier, a gross and vulgar commercial of the city. I simply make these few notes to record a block of my life which has fallen now into the sea. I am thinking back to the time when for the four of us the known world hardly existed. Days became simply the spaces between dreams, spaces between the shifting floors of time, of acting, of living out the topical. A tide of meaningless affairs nosing along the dead level of things, entering no climate, leading us nowhere, demanding of us nothing save for the impossible, that we should be. Justine would say that we had been trapped in the projection of a will, too powerful and too deliberate to be even human, a gravitational field which Alexandria threw down about those it had chosen as its exemplars. After reading Durrell so many times, I found out another piece of interesting information. Turns out, Durrell was discovered by another great writer. It was Miller. Goddamn Henry fucking Miller. Here's how the story goes. Apparently, by all accounts, Lawrence Durrell was a young buck returning back to England and feeling a bit spurned, tossed, maybe even a little bored. And that's when he read Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer, which changed his life. I mean, the men couldn't be any more different. Durrell grew up well-read in private schools in India. Miller was born of barely working-class parents here in New York City. But in 1935, Lawrence Durrell took a serious literary risk and wrote to Henry Miller. It goes like this. Dear Mr. Miller, I have just read Tropic of Cancer again, and I feel like I'd like to write you a line about it. It's a howling triumph from the word go. And not only is it a literary and artistic smack on the bell for everyone, but it really gets down on paper the blood and bowels of our time. I did not imagine anything like that could be written. And yet, curiously, I seem to recognize it as something which I knew we were all ready for. And much to Durrell's surprise, Henry Miller responded in kind. Dear Mr. Durrell, you're the first Britisher who's written me an intelligent letter about the book. For that matter, you're the first anybody who's hit the nail on the head. I particularly prize your letter because it's the kind of letter I would have written myself had I not been the author of the book. It's curious how few people know what to admire in a book. The phrase that struck me particularly in your letter was, I seem to recognize it as something we were all ready for. And that's just it. Durrell and Henry Miller became fast friends, and Miller eventually invited Durrell up to Paris. There, he started to pal around with another friend of his, Anais Nin. They all wandered the streets of Paris together and started their own literary group called the Villa Seurat series, along with Jack Kahane, who started Obelisk Press. Kahane eventually published Durrell's third novel, The Black Book, and both of them remained friends until Henry Miller's death in 1980, and the rest was literary history. But of all the books that still hold such talent and mystery and total inspiration for my own writing, Justine stands there within that pantheon. I'll read one more passage to lead us on out, and humbly tip my hat to one of the greatest writers of the late 20th century, Kill the Cat's featured guest for the week from the afterlife, Mr. Lawrence Durrell. These are the moments which are not calculable and cannot be assessed in words. They live on in the solution of memory, like wonderful creatures, unique of their own kind, dredged up from the floors of some unexplored ocean. Somewhere out there, beyond the mauve throbbing line of the horizon, lies Africa, lies Alexandria, maintaining its tenuous grasp on one's affections, through memories which are already refining themselves slowly into forgetfulness. Memories of friends, of incidents long past. The slow unreality of time begins to grip them, blurring the outlines, so that sometimes I wonder whether these pages record the actions of real human beings. Soon it will be evening, and the clear night sky will be dusted thickly with summer stars. I shall be here, as always, smoking by the water. I no longer wish to coerce anyone, to make promises, to think of life in terms of compacts, of resolutions, of covenants. It will be up to Clea to interpret my silence according to her own needs and desires, to come to me if she has need or not, as the case may be. Does not everything depend on our interpretation of the silence around us? That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. I'm Matthew Diabate. This is Kill the Cat Radio. We'll see you next week.